You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Shall we begin?
Hello and welcome to the Ticket Stub. We are doing a post-credit scene interview. So we've got that coming up. We're excited to talk with Steven Keslowitz. He is the author of several books, including his newest book, You Better Call Saul. We'll touch base with Steven in just a minute. But as always, this is Connor on the Ticket Stub here in studio with Dick.
Good morning. Yeah, we're recording this in the morning, so
right.
The post-credit scene is a little different vibe. It's weird.
Yeah, and we got Chris also.
Doing well. I picked up some reading here.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but he's got one of Steven's books.
I do.
The World According to the Simpsons, another book that Steven had
Picked
written.
it up, the last copy on Amazon.
Oh, my
I got
goodness.
actually.
I feel like those things lie a lot.
Well, I don't know. It said there was more coming soon.
Time for edition 2, Steven. But we want to say hey to our guest, Steven Keslowitz, author of Why You Better Call Saul. Steven, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for buying that book.
Hey, every little bit helps, right? So, Steven, we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to write for the entertainment industry, or what it's like to write books that have to do with. I think you've gotten to meet some cool people, and your life has kind of taken you maybe what seems like in some interesting ways. So let's just go ahead and start. Just tell us, because you're not in the entertainment industry by training, right? You kind of took a different route to get into this world.
Yeah, I'm actually an attorney, so this is something I've done on the side for a number of years, and really starting in college is when I wrote the Simpsons book, and since then that's led to a lot of really cool experiences. You mentioned before meeting a lot of great people. Became friends with some of the Simpsons writers, and one of them invited me to the Fox lot to meet Matt Groening and watch a table read, and then I've become friends with animators. So I keep in touch with more than 100 people from The Simpsons through social media, and we just texting, things like that. And then I wrote about the show 24, so I've met Kiefer Sutherland, and the writing team has bought that book, so that's been fun. They've invited me to some events. And then Better Call Saul, I've kind of met the whole team. I went to the season 3 premiere last year, had lunch with some of the actors, and we text and keep in touch. So it's been a lot of fun. I think that the writing has led to all these cool things. I've always just enjoyed writing and kind of analyzing TV shows, and as an attorney, especially with a show like Better Call Saul, thinking about the legal issues. It's been fun, and then that other side, once you sort of finish the book and work on it, to kind of present it to the people who make the show has been very rewarding.
How do you choose which series you're going to write about? Because it seems between the 3 series you've written about, they're vastly different from one another. Even though they have, I guess, in your Simpsons book, or not your Simpsons book, the Saul book, you wrote about how Homer Simpson and Saul Goodman and Jack Bauer are very similar to you.
Yeah. No, that's great, and I tried to make that connection in the book. I think, I try to pick characters in TV shows that have deep meaning, at least to me, and hopefully to a lot of other people. I think that, I like to think of smart TV, those types of TV shows where you can really learn something from them, where it's more than just the initial watch and just, seeing something funny or seeing an action scene. And I think that you think about a show like 24, for example, where, you can watch that on different levels. And the one level, you're seeing these great action scenes, this hero. I think there's another way to look at the series. This is the first time, the first TV show where, people are kind of exposed visually to torture and terrorism. It's the first post 9/11 dramatic TV show that does that. And, then you hear about stories like, Justice Scalia talking about 24 and Jack Bauer in the Supreme Court. And you hear about Canadian judges referencing, Jack Bauer and 24 in their opinions. And once you see stuff like that, that kind of led me to say, well, what else is here? And I think that is there enough material for a book? What else can we learn from these shows? Why are these, top people in power talking about these shows? And I think it's true. Simpsons 24, Better Call Saul, I think, is just being an attorney and seeing this lawyer go from a decent, likable person to someone who's so morally bankrupt. I just found that fascinating. So, different reasons for each of the books. I do think that Saul Goodman, Jack Bauer, Homer Simpson, in different ways, teach us about life, and that was kind of the common thread. I try to also pick a book that is timely, so something like The Simpsons, sort of doesn't go away. First published, the first edition was 2003, the fourth edition was 2006. A newer edition actually came out more recently, so it's thankful for that series. It just keeps going, and it's helpful for the book.
Yeah, and actually,
also.
Steven's next book is called Why You Need to Keep Up with the Kardashians, and we're all really excited for its release coming out later in 2018.
Yeah.
It's the really hard-hitting shows that Steven likes to write about, the ones with the really deep levels.
I thought he was going for important father figures, and then I guess that's not what he was going for. But with your attorney angle and writing about these shows, would you say these books are more for the fans of those series to get more involved with the series?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think it's certainly helpful to be familiar with the show before reading it. I think that it brings out, I'm trying to bring out certain themes in those shows. So you take the Simpsons book, there's a gun control episode where Homer buys a gun. And, something like that was timely back then during season 9 when it shot, and, still timely today, 20 years later. So I think that, people watch that particular episode and think it's funny at the time, and then hopefully read my book and, and see how I've kind of analyzed it, how it's helpful as a springboard for learning more about those issues. I think that's great. And if you've never seen any of these shows, I think it's a good place to start to kind of read about them, see if you'd be interested. But I think that that would be a good approach.
With TV seem to be your main focus, do you see yourself writing books about movies at all, or is it because TV does have more of an opportunity to have more interesting, in-depth looks at social commentaries and things like that, but movies can too. But with your writing practice and things like that, do you see yourself ever doing movies?
Probably not. I think that with what I've done, I guess I try to pick a show where a TV show I think has more, not longevity to it, but also just there's more depth just because of the number of hours it's on.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if there is a movie franchise, maybe something like that. But I'm just more of a TV person in general, and what I've done in really all of my books, I've kind of made a lot of other pop culture references to different movies. And in the Simpsons book, I think I include a movie list that I've referenced. So they're intended to not just be about that actual TV series, and that's intentional. It's intended to kind of bring in a lot of pop culture, music, movies. If you see the Better Call Saul book, I think I write about over a dozen Billy Joel songs, and trying to be creative in that way to kind of show how his music actually shows us some things about Saul Goodman's life. So, I try to pull in different things from pop culture. Hopefully, it's interesting to people, and movies is definitely part of that.
I did have a question. Since I assume that you've seen every Simpsons episode, or 99% of them, I would think. Do you have a favorite episode over the 600 some odd now, I think?
Yeah, I do. So my favorite is the Frank Grimes episode, Homer's
Oh,
End,
yeah?
season 8.
Okay, yeah.
So I write a lot about that episode. It's it's a very dark episode where Homer, there's this new employee at the power plant who's basically very jealous of Homer. Homer gets by easy, coasting through life, and this other hardworking person, Frank Grimes, comes in, and he's just struggled through everything, and he's in a very similar employment situation now as Homer. And he becomes so frustrated by Homer at the end. He just, spoiler alert, kind of kills himself. He just sort of can't handle.
That's hilarious.
And thinking about connections between The Simpsons and Better Call Saul, in one of the Better Call Saul chapters, I actually devote a section to talk about Frank Grimes and Homer and how that compares to Chuck and Jimmy's relationship. If you think about it, Chuck, what he thinks of Jimmy is, sort of, this guy doesn't deserve to be a lawyer, right? He said that very explicitly. He's dangerous. He's it's like a chimp with a machine gun. That's very much what we see between, Frank Grimes and Homer Simpson. And we see the result, of course, again, spoiler alert, to be the same with Chuck's demise and Frank Grimes. And, that was kind of a fun thing I kind of was thinking about as I was writing the book, trying to connect these shows. But, that was my favorite Simpsons episode.
I want to ask you about Bob Odenkirk, if I could. I remember him from Mr. Show with Bob and Dave. I believe it was on HBO many years ago, and he's absolutely hilarious. So you've gotten to meet him. Can you give us a story about him that you have, or just an experience that you've had with him?
Yeah. I've met him 3 times. Very, very talented, very nice guy. It was actually cool. The first time I met him, I have to say, I introduced myself, and he had said he heard of me, which kind of took me off guard. It was pretty cool. He was familiar with Simpsons book. His brother Bill, who I also know, writes for the Simpsons. So that was kind of cool. And I saw them on the same day in California. It was an interesting experience. But no, he's a very nice guy. I've seen him with fans. He's just signing autographs, things like that. I think he's an extremely hard worker. I think we can all tell from that character, and very good person.
So let me ask you a question, Steven. You're kind of writing commentary about fictional entertainment. You've already kind of mentioned this a little bit, but expand a little bit more. What are some of the impacts that things like TV, movies, that the entertainment industry, how can they impact society, in actuality?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the focus of what I've written about. Here's just one example. So I wrote a couple of articles for my law review when I was in law school, and one of them was just devoted to Homer Simpson and Jack Bauer's influence in the judiciary and in Congress. And I took a look back at congressional hearings, and I sort of just searched for Homer Simpson, Jack Bauer, Archie Bunker, people like that, who I thought might have had some influence just because they're so popular. And you see Homer Simpson's name, Mr. Burns' name, they come up during tax debates. There's actual Congress people who will invoke their names, saying, hey, we don't want to make this a country like Archie Bunker or something like that. And you can sort of, the point of my article was, you can sort of dismiss those as sort of fun kind of references. I think that they have a deeper meaning. So, in just an example in the legal field, the way that judges decide cases is that they look for precedents, right? So if there's a certain thing that happened in the past to someone, a judge will say, oh, how did a previous judge decide that? Well, there was actually a nuclear safety case where there was some damage. I don't remember the exact details. And what the judge had said, he actually wrote this in his opinion, it is now a matter of law. He said this action didn't arise to the level of Homer Simpson-like conduct. That's actually it can be looked up. That's actually in a case.
A legal document has the name Homer Simpson in it. Yeah. Okay.
That's right. It's been multiple times. And what's very interesting about that one is that actually became a legal standard, because not only is it a legal document that had Homer's name in it, that case was then, and that actual sentence was quoted, it was another 17 times in the future. So when someone was deciding what the legal definition of negligence was in a particular case, they said, oh, well, judge, whoever said this didn't rise to Homer Simpson level conduct. So I think that, that's fascinating to me. Whether it's good or bad, I think it's up for debate. And that's just in the legal field, right? I think in terms of, other things, as I said before, with, torture, you could read about torture in textbooks and articles, but I think that 24 presents a view of it because we're actually watching it. And, wherever your views are, legality of torture and all of that, morality, I talk about that a lot in the book, but just the fact that it's being shown in that way has actually, it's demonstrated to have an influence. Kiefer Sutherland went to go talk to West Point cadets about, hey, don't torture people in war. I mean, there's this sense that, what we watch on TV, something called cultivation theory, that we kind of learn what we're seeing, we learn about the world. So, I think there's a tremendous influence from all 3 of these shows.
For sure. So now, I know you're deep in promoting Why You Better Call Saul right now, and everybody, you can check that out on Amazon. If you'd like to pick up a copy of that and learn a little bit more, if you're a Saul lover, or if not. But is there a new show that's kind of or is there a couple, like maybe is there 2 to 3 shows that you're watching right now that you're thinking like, man, I could definitely write something about this in the future? I mean, could Game of Thrones strike your fancy, or Walking Dead, or is there any show that's more relevant than those two that you look at and say, man, maybe this could be my next book?
Yeah, so I haven't seen Game of Thrones, believe it or not. I know people say it's. No, I know.
Well,
I don't have HBO. So
okay.
I just got Netflix actually and Amazon Prime. So trying to watch a lot of that. I don't have anything particular in mind. But just one sort of issue with choosing a TV show is you want to kind of write about it when there's enough content there, and if a book takes a year to be published, you want it to still be relevant when the book is out and continue for a while. So that's more of a marketing issue. But I don't have anything particular in mind, but I hope to write more in the future.
All right. Well, if you can watch the entire series of Game of Thrones in the next 3 days, if you can then write a book in about 2 to 3 weeks, I think you could get it published in prime time to really capitalize on the final season. And that would be one I'd be super interested in.
It's interesting. You look at what he's chosen to write about. You're talking about series that have been influenced by the current culture, and through the world of, like, say, The Simpsons. Every episode's different, and they're influenced by something else. Maybe 24 doesn't really follow that, but Better Call Saul, like you said, Billy Joel and things like that. Game of Thrones, you're in the mind of some crazy man who doesn't even like writing his books anymore, and you have no idea what he's trying to go for. So
but it's like the most popular show.
He
the
made
last 10
incest
years.
all right.
Well, it was cultural.
Spoiler.
Thing, Dick. It was a cultural thing. It's not a spoiler. That's in the first episode. You don't have to get very far to get to that. But yeah, man, look at the legal implications of incest, of murder, of tyranny. Of what's it called when you go against your king?
Treason?
Treason. That's the word, not tyranny. Treason.
Yeah.
All that stuff rolled in. I know you don't have time to make all this happen.
If we
Steven.
brainstorm right now, what TV series today really can give you your angle? And I'm trying to think in my mind. You could do something more of like House of Cards.
All right, he doesn't care what we think about.
There's a lot of
ideas.
There's a lot of creative television going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and especially series that are heading into like the 4-year, 5-year hump.
Yeah.
And then if you do look at the television he's doing, it does. I mean, that they're TV shows that have been around for a long time, or have a game plan of being around for more than 2 seasons. But yeah, there you go. Sorry, I'm trying to have a conversation with our guest.
Sorry. Hey, Steven, we did have a question.
No.
Go ahead.
Of course, yeah, please.
I
was going to just say in terms of timing and all of that. I want you to ask the question. But the Better Call Saul one was very interesting timing, right? Because the show is still on. He hasn't fully transformed to Saul Goodman yet. And actually, this is a question I actually ran by Patrick Fabian, who plays Howard Hamlin. I said, hey, what do you think? Is the perfect timing to release it? And he said, season 3, maybe season 4, because that's kind of like the heart of where our series is making all their fans and kind of hitting its prime and its stride. What I also did in the book is I covered all of Breaking Bad, so it's interesting. And now, just because he hasn't fully transformed, I think it was an interesting time to write that book, and now to see, sort of there is this gap and see how it's filled in, I think is interesting. But yeah, what was that? What were we gonna say?
Yeah, so we were just gonna ask about, as a lawyer, in the media right now, especially in just the entertainment industry at large, there's so much going on with sexual harassment, with all this stuff coming forward, with people getting kind of tried and convicted in the court of popular opinion before there's really anything that's actually legally moved forward. As a lawyer, kind of sitting in the cheap seats watching all this unfold, how do you see all this stuff playing out? Is there going to be? Is that the wrong way to say that, Dick? I guess what's your opinion on it as far as like judging someone before they've been actually judged, if that makes sense? Someone losing their job, their livelihood, before there's been any legal proceedings that have happened.
That's very tough. It's a great question. It's I guess it bothers me to some extent, and I think our country has always been based on, obviously, you built on laws, a body of law, and for something to have a legal consequence, obviously there has to be some sort of standard, right? And to sort of lose your livelihood, even then, I think in the normal type of workplace, if you just make an accusation against somebody, if it's if there's no evidence of it, I think there's a process for sort of dealing with that type of thing. I think it's a little different in Hollywood, right? Because you think about the role of unions and all of that, but then when you're talking about high paid actors and what protections should they have, or their livelihoods, I think these are complicated questions. Should you fire somebody based on unfounded accusations? Probably not. I think that out of all the claims that have been said, I'm sure there's a percentage of them that aren't true, but then for all of those, there's probably many that haven't been reported. So I don't have a great answer. Whenever you hear stuff like this, it's terrible that some of this stuff obviously happened, and no, it's a tough question. Very tough.
Well, yeah, definitely, and it's one that's really relevant right now, it seems like, with all this that's happening. But I think you kind of land in the camp that everyone lands in, which is we don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
We don't know how to handle it because it's probably true, and but anyways, it's just difficult stuff.
Well, actually,
go ahead.
You remind me, so as you're talking, I wrote about one of the other episodes of the World's Greatest Simpsons. There's an episode called Homer Bad Man, and this is where Homer was accused of sexual harassment.
Yep.
And he was actually, he was driving home the family babysitter, and she sat on candy of his. It was like a huge gummy thing that he was saving.
Yeah.
And
Gummy Venus de Milo.
He pulled it off, her butt, and she didn't know what he was doing, and she accused him of sexual harassment. And we of course know he didn't do anything like that. And it was funny because he was drooling, but it was over the candy and all of that. So what was very interesting is then how the media reported that. Everybody was against Homer. And then the question was, does his family support him? And they basically did, but even they had their doubts. And what was really interesting about that show, the reason I wrote about it, is because you think about how the media sometimes represents things without getting all the facts. And they created like a dramatization of the babysitter and Homer and showing him being a monster. And, of course, none of this was true. And at the end of the episode, Homer was vindicated, but they created a new dramatization of everything. And he was like watching it, and he wanted to see what would happen. It was about groundskeeper Willie, who, again, they were sort of making all these unfounded claims and judgments, and it was the same show that Homer had, been accused on, and Homer was, glued to the TV, and that just kind of showed, a few things. But despite being, torn apart and, kind of thrown away by the media and all these false things being said about him, he jumped right on board when they did it to someone else. So it's commentary on, Homer individually, but also in society, right? I mean, if there's a false accusation against one person,
I
they
think
still probably believe things that time.
Yeah, that's very true, and I think that maybe the Hollywood people should just watch that episode of The Simpsons, so they can get an example of.
Chris
of
always
what you're
sides
supposed to do.
with the accused.
No, that is not true. That is not true. I just want them to have their day in court.
Well, that's probably fair. All right, well, Steven, thank you so much. Everyone, the book is called Why You Better Call Saul, what our favorite TV lawyer says about life, love, and scheming your way to acquittal and large cash payouts. Check it out on Amazon. You can check out Steven Keslowitz on Facebook. I'm going to spell that one for you just because maybe everybody can't do Keslowitz. Keslowitz. Check him out on Facebook. Engage him there. You can buy his book. Steven, thanks again for coming on, man.
Thanks so much, guys. That was great. Appreciate it.
And for everybody else, this is the Ticket Stub post-credit scene. You can catch us live every Thursday at noon on irlonestar.com. And find us on all the social medias. We will be there this Thursday, so we'll see you then.
Thank you for checking out this production of Lone Star Community Radio. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station. Don't forget to check out this show and many others across the Lone Star Community Radio Network, either live on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, the Lone Star Internet Radio app, or irlonestar.com's live audio stream, and on replay on podcast, Channel 12's Our City TV in Conroe, or Channel 21 KVQT in Houston, and of course their YouTube channel. This production is copyrighted and all rights are reserved by Lone Star Community Radio. Have a question regarding this program or other Lone Star Community Radio shows? Want to sponsor or start your own show? Call the station message line at 936-647-3776 or email the station at lscrstudios@gmail.com.